I want to thank particularly Leroy and Mayo both for agreeing to serve as co-chairs. We've asked them to take on a rather difficult task, and I'm deeply appreciative that both of you will be able to find the time necessary to do it and organize this and hopefully help us get to a good, positive end result. And I want to thank all of you who are on the committee who've agreed to serve. It is a large committee, may get a shade larger before we're done, but there's a lot of work ahead of us, and all of the different points of views, the different abilities are all welcomed and necessary at the table. So we're happy that as many of you are involved as are. I want to particularly thank 3 members of the Westchester County Board of Legislators who are serving on this committee, the Honorable Lyndon Williams, the Honorable Terry Clemons, and the Honorable Colin Smith, all 3 of whom will serve as members of the committee in the discussions, but because they are members of the Board of Legislators, they will also have the opportunity to take any suggestion that is in the discussion in the works period and bring it back to their colleagues in the Board of Legislators as they choose to do. And if it turns into legislation, if it turns into certain action, then we welcome that. And we thank Lyndon, Terry, and Colin in advance for their double service. Just a few general comments, and then I'll turn it over. We realize that we've had a problem in America for a long, long time, but we didn't realize how urgently we needed to get at it. The death of George Floyd made it very crystal clear that we could not wait another day, another month, to get to things that we should have gotten to a long time before. Not just a long time before in our time in government, but a long time before as a nation. But we're there now, and now the question is, and it's going to be answered by the work that you do and the response for those of us elected officials thereafter, is can we develop strategies and implement policies that will improve the situation dramatically so that the people that are out in the community that are frustrated will see improvement? Can we do it in a way to make sure that our police work, which is essential work for our society, can be conducted fairly and properly and provide the safety and security that everybody wants, but to do it in a way that's appropriate and fair and balanced for everybody. These are not tasks that are ours alone. Every municipality in New York State is required to go through this process by the governor, but we decided we wanted to do this before we were asked to do it or mandated to do it by the governor, because we knew in Westchester that we wanted to do the right thing. We haven't always done the right thing, but what we have to do is learn from the things that we haven't done in the past and now go forward. And that's really what this effort is. We have structured this around a series of topics, but this is still the committee that the members own. And wherever this takes you, gentlemen, wherever it takes you, men and women of the committee, we will follow your lead, and then we'll try to take the best out of that end result. We don't know that we're always going to agree, but we're always going to have, hopefully, respect for each other, and we're going to listen to each other. We're going to learn from each other. I know I intend to do that as part of this process. So that is our general mission of this group. I am going to stop talking and try to talk as little as I can through the whole process, because you don't need any thumb on the scale. If the scales of justice are going to balance, then let them balance properly, and then we'll respond to that. So with that, Co-Chairman, thank you very much for your time and effort, and the meeting is yours.
Thank you very much. I want to thank the County Executive, Deputy County Executive, and thank everyone for having the vision to convene us and to give us an opportunity to work in criminal justice at a time when it's critical that we do so. I think I would be remiss if I did not mention that the County Executive and Deputy County Executive have been doing this well before the death of George Floyd. In fact, before they actually came into this administration, they had met with members of the community to deal with best practices in policing. And I'm excited about working with you and with everybody who's agreed to dedicate their time toward this effort, because clearly it's not in reaction to something that has occurred recently, but it's with the vision toward making Westchester County the best that it can be. So that being said, I'm going to be fairly brief. We're going to ask everybody to be fairly brief because we have roughly 28 people, and so we're going to try to get through this portion of the meeting, this first meeting, as expeditiously as possible. But I want to talk to you a little bit about the purpose of the task force. And again, the purpose goes back to 2016 and before then, and it was just a realization that when you look at the criminal justice system in terms of policies, in terms of recruitment, in terms of practical application, it's something that can be improved upon. And I'm of the mindset that even if you are the very best that you can be, that the day you stop trying to improve, then you will cease to be the very best. So one of our goals is to look at what works in Westchester County already, sometimes even to highlight certain things that people may not be aware already exist in Westchester County, and then to look at things that should be changed. And in doing so, I would suggest that we look at other states, we look at other counties, and even look outside of the United States for best practices. So our goal is going to be able to take the best practices from all over the world and to find those things that work best for us here in Westchester County, so that we will be able to construct certainly a world-class, if not the best model for policing going forward. And it will be something that future generations will have in place. It will be ideally beyond executive order. We're looking to have structural manifestation in terms of legislation and policy, and things that will be here long after we are no longer here. And I look forward to working with all of you, and I think that even though many of us come from different disciplines, we have the same mindset, and that goal is a love of our communities and of our neighbors, and an interest in making this the very best place it can possibly be. And in the process, when things occur, because we're not naive enough to believe nothing's going to happen, we will have already had an honest working relationship for law enforcement, community, and people of different disciplines, whether it's mental health or other. In terms of just in terms of explanation of what our expectations are, what our roles will be. My expectation is that we have to agree to disagree, because if we can't do that, then we're not going to really be able to achieve very much, and that we will agree to work with each other in such a fashion that we let people fully voice their opinions, and that we let them do so without any type of condemnation. And I know I don't need to even say this. I know many of you, and I can tell that we're not going to have, I don't expect any types of issues as far as that goes. The other thing that I would strongly suggest is many of you have taken stances with respect to this issue and others in your personal life or with other organizations. As we work on this task force, I would suggest that we should not be speaking in a manner that represents the task force itself. So that would be for the county executive or the deputy county executive to say. So we would be meeting and working together, but we would bring the results of our efforts back to them, and then it's for them to determine how it would actually be set forth in the public. So I would ask that we not have individual public statements that may be misconstrued as being on behalf of the county or any member of the county executive's office, deputy county executive, or other members of the task force. So with that being said, I'm very excited and look forward to working with everyone. And thank you very much for taking your time and for agreeing to work with us on this effort.
Good evening, everyone. I joined Mayo with his expressions of gratitude to the deputy county exec and his team for being able to work on this project. I will not repeat everything he said, but Mayo and I have spoken several times since we began this journey, and he says things a lot more eloquently than I could ever do so. I will only respond or state one thing further. When he was saying no public statements in order to protect the integrity of the process, that includes social media, because I know a lot of times people are on social media and don't always realize that their opinions may be reflective of the process itself. So at this point, what I'd like to do is just talk about the timeline and the framework of the task force. First of all, we've been asked to come up with a written report by the end of the year. And in order to do so, we've set up and designed a process that we think will be workable, and we ask you to go along with it. What we will be doing is talking about when the next meetings are going to take place, what's to take place in between now and the next meeting. Now, at present, there are 28. There may be a couple of more members of the committee, task force, I should say, to be added. We have come up with 6 main areas that we think will be broken down in the working group, and we're going to ask or assign at least about 5 of the members to each of the working groups. This does not mean you can only address or speak to what's in the particular working group you're assigned to. It also means that we will be happy to discuss with you if you feel that you will be more useful on another working group other than which you will be assigned. One of the reasons we had asked for your personal statements that many of you did submit was to aid us in making this selection process. We'll do so and hopefully get it back to you by the end of the week. By saying that doesn't mean you can't contribute to others. A lot of you know each other. If in fact you're assigned to one particular working group and you want to make sure information gets over to another to be discussed, that you feel free to contact them and share that information. And when the working groups come back to the task force to report out, there will be discussion on each and all of the points that were raised in each of the working groups. Without going into detail, I'll tell you that I'll give you the titles of the working groups. There's a lot of information that comes beneath the titles that you will get, everyone will get once we issue the assignments. The first is transparency. The second is accountability. The third is community engagement. The fourth is training and equipment. Then qualifications and recruitment. And finally, policies and procedures. So just by the mere fact that we have 6, there's a lot of information contained in each. That's a lot of information that we are going to have to roll up our sleeves and work on over the next few months leading into December. The timeline that you will receive is that you'll have the timeline of the meetings of each of the task force. But in between, we ask the working groups to meet, to work on things, and be prepared at the meeting of the following task force to present issues, and then once they're discussed in the task force meeting, go back, discuss again, and come back to report back so that we can see how much consensus we could reach in each of these areas. The next task force meeting is not until September 10th. So, in the interim, by the end of the week, hopefully, right, Blanca, you will receive the assignments of the particular working group that you're in. That means you have the rest of July and all of August to meet and and come up with recommendations so that on September 10th, we will all come together, meet, discuss what you've presented, what you've come up with, the solutions to all of the problems in your particular area. Of course not. But we'll address it. You'll raise the issues. We'll have our starting point. And then you'll go back and talk again. The next task force meeting will be October the 6th. And then the next one after that will be November the 5th. And then November 19th. We tried to leave all of December open so that we could then get together and form a report and take everybody's opinions into account in doing so. Of course, in between that time, there are going to be 2 public forums. The first one will be July 21st and the second, October 27th. The purpose of the public forums, again, is so that the public can have an opportunity to weigh in and to discuss whatever issues they feel that is most important to the general public. All of you in your working group and the task force in general will pay close attention to that. We'll see if we're hitting on the right marks on what we're looking at, and if we're not, we can make adjustmts. And once we do that, we'll be able to do that again in October for the second one, because I'm sure other issues may be raised in the interim. I'll give you a chance for questions at the end of the meeting today, or before the end of the meeting today. However, what we want to do is to have everyone go around and introduce themselves, take a couple of minutes to talk about what your most important issues are. Keep in mind, we're going to try and hold you firmly to the 2 minutes that you're doing, because we do have your public statement. the written statements that you submitted, but we also want the rest of the task force to hear from you at the very beginning today so they can set the stage for our continued cooperative communication going forward. I think, Copernic, is going to call out your name, and then you can then begin with your introduction.
Hi, everyone. So first we're going to be hearing from Commissioner Thomas Gleason. Commissioner, I'm going to have to find you here and make sure that I'm getting you in here, okay? Yes, I seem to have found you.
Can you hear me now?
Here we go.
We can hear you.
Very good. So for those that don't know me, just a little background on me. I was born and raised in Yonkers, graduated from Lincoln High School and from Fordham University. Began my law enforcement career when I joined the county police in January of 1983 as a member of the patrol division. And over my 37-year career here, I've worked and supervised in every division in the department, including patrol, detectives, support services, and internal affairs. I came up through the ranks and, in fact, held every rank in this department. And I was appointed as Commissioner Sheriff by the County Executive in 2018. I also am a graduate of the FBI National Academy. As much of the focus of the Governor's executive order deals with training, and I'm sure we're going to spend much time discussing how we deliver police training here in Westchester. As you know, my department runs the Westchester County Police Academy, and I have prepared already a detailed breakdown of our training programs so that can be presented to you at the appropriate time. So everyone gets a good understanding of the extensive training that we provide for not only police recruits, seasoned police officers, and first-line supervisors. I believe here in Westchester we have been proactive and ahead of the curve already, including many of the topics specifically mentioned by the Governor. We teach topics such as procedural justice and implicit bias, which have now been combined into a 3-day program called Principled Policing. De-escalation is an underlying theme throughout all police academy and throughout the recruit training. Duty to intervene is taught and stressed throughout, and crisis intervention is reinforced throughout interactive training and role-playing. As far as our department procedures and policies, we've also been very proactive in many areas. Our professionalism in law enforcement is evidenced by the fact that we have been a New York State accredited agency, accredited by the Department of Division of Criminal Justice Services since 1992, meaning we've demonstrated through peer review and we have continued the commitment to best practices and the highest standards. This achievement has only been obtained by about 25% of all law enforcement agencies in New York State. This program requires our department to subject itself to periodic review of its ongoing compliance with over 110 standards covering the entire range of administration to training and operations. And the county police have demonstrably met these standards continuously for 30 years. We also have a police board with members appointed by the county executive and the board of legislators since 1979. And this board was expanded in 2019. We've had in-car video cameras since 1999 and added body cameras after the board of legislators approved a capital project funding in 2017. That being said, we look forward to the review and for recommendations of this task force. We're always open to positive change and anything we could do to improve how we work. I also look forward to any recommendations this group can forward to the state of New York to mandate that all law enforcement agencies in the state adhere to the highest standards of recruitment, candidate selection, training and supervision, as well as professional conduct. That's it from me.
Great. So next up, I sent you a message just a little while ago. Ms. Chandra Floyd Mcclary, you're going to be next to speak. Let me get you up here very quickly.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for allowing me to be a participant in this task force. I am actually from Rochester, New York, so I bring the spirit of Rochester. I've been in Westchester County for 5 years. I was a marketing and branding strategist prior to moving into education, and I was recruited to Somer Central School District in northern Westchester, and I work as an instructional coach, and I'm also moving forward with the equity work at hand. And I live in Mount Kisco and am representing the village and town, and I'm just very excited about this whole opportunity to reimagine policing, to reimagine just the way in which our segregated communities can actually learn to communicate and learn to assign human dignity to everyone.
Great. Next up, we're going to hear from Mr. Andre Earley. Unless you have any additional comments, Ms. Mcclary?
I'm fine. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Andre Earley, currently serving as the Town of Greenbrook's Commissioner for the Department of Community Resources. We are the Theodore D. Young Community Center. I was born and raised right here in the White Plains / Greenberg area, grew up in the same facility that I now oversee. And it's a pleasure to be able to just give some type of value and insight on this task force. I look at it from a holistic standpoint, not only police reform, but I am adamant about addressing racism. So as we look at the social and economic system of this country, it encompasses education, criminal justice, health, housing, employment, and the community itself. And it's all interlocking. It's all, pieces to a master plan. We have to make sure that we address all of these factors to really get the true impact that we seek to make. And it's a pleasure. It's going to be some hard work. It's definitely going to be hard work. But I believe with those that are assembled, we are up for that challenge, up for the task, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Thank you.
Great. Next up, we're going to hear from Damon Jones. 1 second here while I pull him up. All right, Damon, we've got you on.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Damon Jones. I am a correction officer, worked for Westchester County Department of Corrections for 30 years, still working. I'm former Northeast Region president of the National Black Police Association. I am currently the New York representative of Blacks in Law Enforcement of America. I have assisted in advising on behalf of the National Black Police Association Governor Patterson's Police on Police Shooting Task Force, which was to examine the disproportionately shootings of African American officers while on duty or in plain clothes. I also assisted lawyer Benita Selman in Breonna's Law, which was to have NYPD be yearly trained in CPR training, and that was sponsored by New York State Senator Eric Adams and Assemblyman Louis Ortiz, and it was signed into law, I believe, 2016. I also worked with the United Nations International Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Racism and Discrimination in the 2014 Shadow Report. And I also worked with the United Nations in the Universal Periodic Review in 2020. I am glad to be here. I think this is a long conversation that's needed to have on a policy, procedure, and training level, and a legislation level also. So I'm great to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Next, we're going to hear from Lila Curtin. 1 moment, please, while I pull her up. Lila, we've got you up now.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Lila Curtin. I am very grateful to the county executive for appointing me to serve on this very, very important task force. My current role is Bureau Chief of the Community Outreach and Strategic Planning Unit of the District Attorney's Office here in Westchester County. I started my legal career in the Queens County DA's office. I worked for 16 years in the State Attorney General's office, and then I held some other positions in government, not necessarily in law enforcement. I currently represent the office also and a number of diversity and inclusion commissions within the state and the city, and I'm regional director for the National Black Prosecutors Association. I am particularly interested in community engagement practices, implicit bias and anti-racism training, transparency in the civilian complaint review process, and as I said, I'm really looking forward to working with everyone to improve our police and law enforcement relations here in the county. Thank you.
Great. Next up, we're going to hear from Robin Schleisinger, and I'm going to bring the camera up to you now, Robin. Great.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Copper. Good afternoon. My name is Robin Schlesinger, and I'm a resident of North White Plains, and I grew up in both Yonkers and Scarsdale. I'm an attorney with a solo practice that has become largely focused on the LGBTQ community, and particularly with transgender and gender-expansive individuals. I'm also a doctoral candidate in higher education leadership at Manhattanville College. I'm a member of the county's LGBTQ advisory board, and I volunteer for the Loft LGBTQ Center in White Plains. I do frequent speaking on the laws affecting trans and LGBTQ people, especially after the passage of GENDA in New York State last year, and I do gender awareness training for higher education and business. I participate and support groups and counsel individuals at risk of self-harm as well as their families. Most of my career was spent doing fundraising for various nonprofit entities, including Westchester Community College, Western Connecticut State University, the San Diego Zoo, and the University of California at Berkeley. My statement actually focused on several different areas, first being whether or to what extent police should be armed. The second was the idea of reinventing the police as a community service. And the third, I think it goes without saying that this country, among others, is in the midst of an epidemic in the murder of trans women of color. And to date, at least 25 in the U.S. Have been, that we know of, have lost their lives, which is outpacing last year's total that we know of, which was over 30. And I hope that this committee will be looking at the issues of intersectionality, race, gender, misogyny, socioeconomic status that are behind this terrible epidemic. Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity to serve on this committee.
Great. Thank you so much, Robin. Next, we're going to have Chris Mcnerney. So, Chris, let me pull the video up on you very quickly. Okay, Chris, you should be good to go right about now.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Mcnerney. A bit of background. I was raised in the town of Greenburgh. I have deep roots here in Westchester County. I continued to live in the village of Ardsley. I worked as a police officer in the town of Greenburgh for about 25 years. I was fortunate to have an outstanding career where I worked in every division in the police department and I held every rank. I'm a certified police instructor in many areas, and I retired as chief of police in 2019. I'm currently employed as the chief criminal investigator of the Westchester County District Attorney's Office. I'm also a licensed attorney in the states of New York and Connecticut, and currently the president of the Westchester County Chiefs of Police Association. I appreciate the opportunity to participate on this task force. The Westchester County Chiefs of Police Association is committed to providing outstanding police service to the residents of our county while partnering with the people we serve. We support police reforms that will build trust and legitimacy in our communities while enhancing public safety. We recognize that this is not an easy task and difficult conversations will be needed to achieve this. So we must rise above politics to get this done. Thank you.
Great. Thanks a lot, Chris. Next, we're going to hear from Karine Patino. So, Karine, just 1 second here. All right, Karine, you should be good to go right about now.
Thank you. I started a bit too soon. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Karine Patino. I was born and raised here in northern Westchester. I live in Mount Kisco, and I've lived here for my whole life. I'm a proud daughter of immigrants, of Ecuadorian immigrants. I attended Pace Law School, and I currently practice criminal defense and immigration law here in Westchester and in Putnam County. In Putnam County specifically with the Legal Aid Society. And the area of importance in the police reform movement for me personally, is understanding immigration status and cultural differences within the community of color. What many people seem to remember is the death of Rene Perez in 2007, which was a critical moment for Mount Kisco. A Mount Kisco police officer was charged with manslaughter and ultimately acquitted, but it resulted in a community that was divided, a community that was hurt and afraid, kind of like how it is right now. So after attending a community forum in Mount Kisco, I became program coordinator of PAC. It's called Police and Community Together. And this was a partnership between Mount Kisco Police Department at that time, which is now Westchester County Police Department, and Neighbors Link, with the guidance of Corolla Bracco. Our focus was bridging the gap between the immigrant community and the communities of color with the police department. We first started with community outreach events, and we ended up creating a cultural competency program for police officers, and they were part of it. So to see the community and the police officers putting in their part, after a couple of years, we began to see the noticeable difference, and so I'm excited to apply my knowledge on that here, and I'm excited to work with everybody here. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Karine. Next, we're going to hear from Mr. Terrence Rayner. 1 second here. All right, Terrence, you should be good to go right about now.
Good afternoon, and County Exec, Deputy County Exec, co-chairs, and all of those assigned to this task of reform for the public safety. A little bit about myself. I was born in the great borough of Brooklyn, and I was raised between Brooklyn, New York, and Westchester County. My public safety career began in 1984 in the city of Mount Vernon. It culminated in 2006. During that time, I was promoted to each rank within the department. I worked in many of the units within the Mount Vernon Police Department, namely the Police and Community Empowerment Unit, the Quality of Life Task Force, Community Affairs, the School Resource Officer Program, the DARE Unit, and I was charged as a captain of creating and heading the Internal Affairs Division for the Mount Vernon Police Department. I left the Mount Vernon Police Department in 2006 to work for the District Attorney's Office as its Chief Criminal Investigator, where I stayed until 2013. Then I went back to Mount Vernon, actually, for about 2.5 years as the Commissioner of the Mount Vernon Police Department. So having more than 30 years of law enforcement and probably just over 2/3 of my career being spent supervising and managing police officers, I'm of the opinion that all of the policies, the practices, and procedures which govern the way we in law enforcement operate really could use this critical review. And in some instances, I believe there is an overhaul with an eye towards the civil unrest the nation's experiencing, which is due. I especially believe that given the current state of civil unrest, in addition to the obvious topics like use of force, abuse of power, training or lack thereof, and the culture of policing, which is passed from generation to generation, we should also concern ourselves with the civil service laws as they pertain to the hiring practices, termination, and due process for civil service employees. Over the years, I've spoken with countless police executives who have voiced concerns over the hiring process and the inability to remove bad employees from service. So for that reason, I think a review is critical of the current civil service laws, and I look forward to working with this group in hopes of bringing the appropriate change to the County of Westchester and to policing as a profession. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rayner. Next, we're going to be going to Chief Melvin Padilla. Chief, I will be locking the camera on you right now. 1 second, sir. All right, you should be good to go right about now, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm echoing on my side. Am I echoing on yours?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I don't know how to fix that. In any case, sorry for the echo. I'm on two.
Yeah.
Do you want to come back to me and let me try and figure this out?
I think we should be good to go now. I'm going to leave our end on mute throughout, so hopefully there won't be any echo.
Okay, just quickly, I was born in the city of Poughkeepsie, upstate New York, and I lived in Westchester since 2012. I started my service career with the U.S. Navy for 6 years active duty. After that, I joined the New York City Police Department in 2000, prior to coming to the town of Bedford in 2020. I worked my way up through the ranks to Chief of Police in 2014, at the end of 2014, and I've served in that capacity since. I share Deputy Commissioner Rayner's concerns and interest in qualifications and recruitment, civil service rules, and different ways to manage getting the best quality candidates to hire. I think that's where all of this kind of starts, with the best candidates. And some of the civil service rules are very restrictive in allowing us to be able to pick the very best candidates to serve our community. In addition to that, I also think that the background and psychological evaluations that only happen at the beginning of a police career don't take into account the things that can happen to an officer in this profession, doing it for 10, 20, 30 years. So 10 years into a police career, that same candidate may be a much different person. And I think additional review and help might be necessary mid-career, at least. So that's some of the things I'd be most interested in taking a look at. So I look forward to working with everyone. Sorry for the technical difficulties. I'll square that away for the next meeting.
Great, thank you so much, Chief. Next, we're going to be going to Tejas Sanchala, the head of our Human Rights Commission. All right, Tejas, 1 second here, and you should be good to go right about now.
Thanks, Copper. Thank you to the County Executive for convening this important task force. I joined the Human Rights Commission last year as the Executive Director. I grew up in Westchester County, too. I was raised in Irvington, and I now live in Greenburgh. I think this is a lot of work that this task force can do. For years, if not longer, people of color have been drawing attention to the differential treatment that they've experienced in police encounters because of their race. A police encounter for a white man and a black man are not the same. Yesterday was the 4th anniversary of Philando Castile's death. He was shot and killed in his car in front of his girlfriend and young daughter during a traffic stop. Police brutality and misconduct are just symptoms of the larger disease that is systemic racism. Selective criminal enforcement and prosecution can lead to lifelong consequences in communities of color. For example, a criminal conviction can negatively impact employment opportunities and housing opportunities. It's my hope that this task force focuses on bias in policing and reducing implicit biases. We need to look at how new officers are trained, what continuing education is provided to existing personnel, and there needs to be transparency in finding ways to hold bad actors accountable, similar to other professions. My brother's a physician. If a physician commits professional misconduct, the physician could lose his or her license or face other disciplinary action by the state. The physician's disciplinary record can be viewed on the state's website publicly. Finally, we need to look at how incidents are recorded and reported. For example, Ahmaud Arbery's mother stated that when she was contacted by the police department, she was told that her son was shot and killed inside a house during the commission of a burglary. If not for the videotape of her son being shot in the street while jogging, his legacy would have been that he died during a crime. Just think about that. A mother's memory of her son's last moments would have been based on a lie if not for the video. And I look forward to working with this task force, and I'm proud to see 3 members of the Human Rights Commission board on this task force. Reverend Doris Dalton is our chair. She's here as well. Reverend Dr. Stephen Pogue is our vice chair. I don't see him on our screen right now. And Andre Earley is also a commission board member who you've heard from. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Tejas. Next, we're going to go to Michael Hagan. Just 1 second here while I adjust. All right, Michael, you should be free to speak right about now.
Mike Hagan, I'm a sergeant with the Westchester County Police, been a police officer for about 31 years. I actually started my career, I was in a criminal justice. I took criminal justice at Iona. I got a BA there. I was an intern here at the Westchester County Police. Then I was a summer seasonal police officer. Then I was hired by New York City, left New York City in 92. I came up here. So I've been about 31 years as a police officer. 13 years as the PBA president here. I'd like to thank the CE for putting me on this task force and giving a voice to the officers who were actually working out in the street. You know, our PBA has a record of working with the community and with elected officials, and we continue to look forward to that commitment to working to make sure that we're the most professional department out there, and that we're serving the community, you know, responsive to the needs of the community that we serve. Some of the points that are important to, I think, myself and the officers that be out there, you know, doing the job is that you recognize that we are an accredited agency and we are, you know, basically meeting and exceeding every guideline that the state has set. We're a professional department and we take pride in that. And any changes to policies and procedures, I think we just have to have an eye toward whether or not those things are actually workable in the street, and that, you know, it doesn't put our safety, the police officer's safety, in jeopardy, as, you know, you're going to continue to ask us to go into harm's way. So we look forward to working with everyone to make sure that we, you know, we're responsive to the needs of the community, with the understanding that, you know, we're willing to take risks, but we just need to know what they are, and you know, we'll go out there and do our job to the best of our ability, and, you know, make sure that we can serve the community and make everybody safe, because a safer community makes us safer too. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Next to speak is going to be Miss Barbara Hart. Barbara, just give me 1 second here. All right, Barbara, you should be good to go right about now.
Hi, everybody. It's a lot of wisdom that I've already heard in just listening to this, the group of people that have already introduced themselves, and I sincerely appreciate all of the thoughts and the goodwill that have been stated so far. I grew up in Chappaqua. My dad was the high school principal of Horace High School, and I was the youngest of 5. And my mom was self-educated. She worked as a secretary at Roaring Brook, and I have raised my kids in Croton-on-Hudson, my 2 kids with my husband, and I'm the president and CEO of a law firm called Lowy Dannenberg. And I have therefore been a lifelong really resident and in love with Westchester County, and I have to confess, I do civil litigation, and I currently represent about 50 child sexual abuse victims that are men in their 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s that were abused by Boy Scout troop leaders and coaches and doctors and various people in Westchester County. And obviously this would have been crimes back in the day. But other than that, my litigation experience is really civil litigation. So what I really bring to this discussion is perhaps a real deep concern that Westchester be a community, and that it reflect our values, and that I be part of listening and learning and bridge building between the community and the police, town to town, and the urban centers, where White Plains is, where my office is very different from Chappaqua. Chappaqua is very different from Croton, where I've raised my kids. Yet I wish that we could foster a broader sense of community. I hear what's being done in Mount Kisco with, I think it was PAC, and I'm wondering if that's being replicated in other towns. I'm wondering how much learning is being shared across the communities. But these are all, I don't want to pop off half-baked in terms of my knowledge on what is going on. I just want to try to be part of the solution and the discussion. And I do know that while I didn't come from money, I was treated with kid gloves at various times in my youth by the police, and I now know that a lot of my kids' friends and family members really encounter the police differently, and this seems to be something that needs to be put on the table while not vilifying the police, who face a lot of challenges and uncertainty in every encounter they go into. So, I just thank you all for your comments so far, and I deeply appreciate the county executive allowing me to join this task force.
Thank you so much, Barbara. Next, we're going to go to County Legislator Colin Smith. Colin, one moment here while I pull you up. You should be good to go right about now.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Crane, and good afternoon, everyone. I want to start by saying it's a real privilege and honor to have been selected to sit on this task force with such a breadth and such a diversity of background and experience. I'll start by saying I'm looking forward to learning from you all, and from what I've heard so far, it sounds as though there is a lot that I will learn, and so I'm very appreciative of that. I want to specifically thank the county executive, deputy county executive, as well as our board chair, Ben Boykin, for appointing me to sit on this task force. Background on me, quickly. I'm born and raised here in Westchester, in the city of Peekskill. Currently sit as on the Board of Legislators. I currently sit as the chair of the Public Safety Committee, and I, prior to getting on the board, I was 6 years as a member of the Peekskill City School Board, and then was on the Peekskill Common Council. In my private life, I am an attorney. I started off my legal career as a prosecutor with the Bronx County District Attorney's Office, and then the last 2 years doing a variety of civil and a variety of practice, but most of it is criminal defense. So I approached this task force with that background and knowledge and skill set in that area. But as has already been stated, we are at a pivotal moment in not only our county's history, but our nation's history. And so this is a really good opportunity for us as leaders in our community, as electeds, to really to address the systemic issues that we now see are being addressed, playing out here and across our nation. I did submit my statement. I'm not going to read through that. I am certainly interested in seeing the ways in which we can improve the training within our Department of Public Safety, the training which we offer to our local municipalities, also other areas in which we can improve meaningful collaborations, maybe some of our other departments, Department of Social Services, our Department of Mental Health. In the 21st century, in my view, as a layperson, policing has, to me, seemed to really have taken on a pretty significant role across the board. It isn't just the old quote-unquote cops and robbers motif. Police officers are called upon to respond to a variety of situations, and many of which, some of which they are adequately prepared for, and some of which they probably are not. And so there's always room for improvement. In my brief tenure as the Department of Public Safety Chair, I have gotten to know our Commissioner of Public Safety and his team, and I think that Westchester has a great Department of Public Safety. But as any organization, there's always room for improvement, and so I look forward to working with Commissioner Gleason, with his team, and with the other members of this task force towards that end. And I think that we're off to a start. So thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, County Legislator. Next up, we're going to have the Honorable Judge Joaquin Alemany. I apologize if I didn't pronounce that correctly. One moment, please, sir. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm very bad with the names sometimes. 1 second here. All right. You should be good to go right about now, sir. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Joaquin Alemany. Many people call me Jack.
I apologize.
That's fine. You're not the first. I am the child of immigrants. I was born on the Lower East Side of Manhattan in a tenement, and then we moved up in life a couple of blocks into New York City public housing. And I've had a lot of life experience from Manhattan to Queens, and the last 35 years have been spent in Westchester County, 5 in Yonkers, and 30 in Scarsdale. I went to the Bronx. I worked at the Bronx District Attorney's Office, similar to Colin Smith, where I dealt with all different types of police officers, all different types of crimes. I then went into private practice, and in Bronx County, had an office on the concourse and criminal law. The past 8 years, I've been a judge, and interesting, the first thing I wanted to do when I was in charge of the Scarsdale Village Justice Court was to instill a culture of respect for everyone. And I made it clear to all of the clerks and all of the court officers and everyone who worked for the court that everyone was to be treated equally with respect, and that if there was a problem, to come to me and I would deal with them. And it was respect from the top down. I came out and I spoke to people in Spanish. I helped people. I wanted people to come into my court and to feel that they were going to be treated fairly, that they weren't going to be railroaded or treated poorly or disbelieved because of the color of their skin or their language or their background. Everyone from top down has to be respected. And that's what I think we should be striving to attain in Westchester County, where when somebody has an encounter with a police officer anywhere in Westchester County, that they can feel safe and assured that they will be treated with unbiased respect. So I thank the county executive for answering on this task force, and I look forward to working with everyone. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Judge. Next up, we're going to have Reverend Doris Dalton. I'm going to move the camera over to her now. All right, Reverend Dalton, you should be up in just 1 second longer. You should be good to go right about now.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I am Reverend Doris K. Dalton. It's an honor to be with all of you, and I've enjoyed kind of getting to know all of you through this WebEx situation that we're in. I'm a White Plains resident. I've been here for about 6 years now. I'm a pastor, so this is, consider this like a sermonette. All right, so my calling is to extend the table of love so that all may eat and be full. So I live out that calling currently as the Director of Leadership Development and Intercultural Competency for the New York Conference of the United Methodist Church. So that means that part of my work is strengthening intercultural competency skills as a core leadership skill for clergy who serve in over 425 churches in the New York and Connecticut region. So before this, I was the Executive Director of the Westchester County Martin Luther King Jr. Institute for Nonviolence, which is located in White Plains. I also have done work with the Westchester Coalition for Police Reform and other interfaith and social justice organizations in the area. And I currently serve, as Tate has already noted, I currently serve my community as the chair of the Human Rights Commission. And I'm proud of the work that we've been able to do there. So from the vantage point of my combined study, work, and analysis and effective organizations that serve communities and systems change, I believe a necessary work of this community will be to address systemic racism and the ideology of white supremacy that's present in all institutions of the United States and also present in the institution of law enforcement. We can do this through contextualized and focused leadership development and supporting systems of ongoing education and training, responsibility and accountability. So leadership development that's authentic and astute about the challenges of policing in a country with systemic racism and white supremacy embedded into its implicit and explicit consciousness will be able to address the cultural pandemic, another pandemic of racism and also what biased policing looks like in the public that's been experiencing it. So leadership development that operates on a foundation of accurate and shared language and meaning of systemic racism and white supremacy with an effective plan to dismantle that in policing will have a clearer path towards the goal of equitable policing. So without this critical assessment, I believe the work of this committee will only be able to produce training and accountability policies that are successful in part and half measures that could capitulate to white privilege and the comforts of what is considered normal, which unfortunately will continue to cripple the authenticity of partnerships and relationships between police officers and the public. Another area that I wrote about that I think deserves this committee's attention is the discussion of a CCRB, which is a Civilian Complaint Review Board. I've heard a couple of other people talk about that too. I think that's a really important thing that we could discuss. And then to my fellow committee members, I hope that we will be bold and courageous to work towards a change that we have long dreamed of, but many have considered hopeless within our lifetime. So we stand together at the precipice of a new possibility that can innovate policing throughout this county. And I urge that we do not shy away from the necessary and hard conversations that are needed for such a time as this. So I remind you of the words of W.E.B. Du Bois, who prayed, "Give us grace, O God, to dare to do the deed which we know cries to be done. Let us not hesitate because of ease or the words of others' mouths or our own lives, because mighty causes are calling us." So may God give us ears to hear the possibilities that call out to all of us, and may we respond with boldness to that calling. Amen.
Well, thank you very much, Reverend Dalton. Next, we're going to hear from Westchester County Legislator Lyndon Williams. One moment, please. Okay, Lyndon, you should be up just about now. You should be good to go.
Hello. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me commend the County Executive, George Latimer, Deputy County Executive, Ken Jenkins, and their teams, as well as co-chairs, who are quite able to pull this daunting task together. I am delighted to join you on this committee, this task force, as an appointee of the County Board of Legislators through our chairman, Ben Boykin. I believe that this task force is in a critical role to play with respect to policing in the county of Westchester, not only with respect to the county police, but policing in general. Let me give you a big background about myself. I am the county legislator from the city of Mount Vernon, the 13th legislative district. I was elected to the Board of Legislators and took office in 2008. and have served in several capacities of leadership and in committees. Right now, I'm the chair of the Committee on Law and Major Contracts and participate in the other committee work that we do. Prior to joining the Board of Legislators, I served on the Mount Vernon City Council. I served in the role of president for 3 terms and chaired just about all of the major committees on the City Council. While I was on the City Council, one of my very important, I thought it was very important aspect of legislation was to look into the concept of community policing, which I believe in these discussions we're going to have ought to be part of the discussion, because I believe to have policing without having relationships, we're not able to accomplish the goal that the police are supposed to accomplish, which is to work with the communities that they serve. And that's why you have the kind of culture today that is more of an occupying force rather than serving the community. Now, that doesn't go to all police officers, but nevertheless, I believe that this committee, this task force, at the end of the day, can change the culture and the relationships, then we would have accomplished quite a lot. In addition to my work in the Board of Legislators, I'm an attorney in civil litigation by profession. I lived in the city of Mount Vernon for most of my adult life. Prior to that, I grew up in the Bronx, New York. And it's been an experience to really serve in the capacity as an elected official for a community that have several challenges that we deal with. But nevertheless, I believe that we have done quite a lot in terms of accomplishing our goals as a community. I also participate actively in the Westchester Black Bar Association. To my colleagues I know who are here, I've done so, and that's been an issue that we have been concerned with for years, the issue of policing, the issue of systemic racism. So we understand that those issues cannot be resolved unless you have people really ready, willing, and able to step up to the plate and to have the kind of dialogue, open and honest dialogue that we're going to be having in this task force process. So I look forward to us working together. I believe we have an opportunity to write on a clean slate, to really make great policy recommendations, not only to the Board of Legislators, but also on a statewide basis. And Westchester County can really step forward, as it normally does, as a leader in reforming policing and reforming relationships. Thank you.
Thank you very much, County Legislator. Next up, we're going to hear from a Mr. Paul Hood. Just 1 second, Paul, while I pull you up here. All right. We should have you up now. You should be good to go.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for having me. It's an honor to be a member of this prestigious committee. I look forward to working with everybody. My name is Paul Hood. I'm a retired law enforcement officer. I retired as a sergeant from the Village of Sleepy Hollow Police Department. I started my career in the city of White Plains, and after my second year on the job, I was given the responsibility of being the liaison between the White Plains public housing community and the police department, where I was tasked with bridging the gap between the public housing community and the police department. I think it was very successful. I had to fully entrench myself in the community and getting to know everybody. And I soon realized that it was more than just an 8-hour job. And I think in order to be successful, you have to realize that your work goes beyond just your working hours. And we were very successful, so I'm a firm believer in community policing. And I think that's something that we've gotten away from. And one of my pet peeves is when I see police cars ride through a community and the officers have their windows up, because to me, that's a detachment from the community. And it's showing that you're really not accessible to the people in the community. I'm also president of the Westchester Rockland Guardians, where I'm in my 4th consecutive term, going on 8 years now of being the president. We are a African-American law enforcement organization tasked with bridging the gap also between the law enforcement community and the communities in which we serve. Our members are very diverse. We have probation officers, we have correction officers, and we have police officers. About my career, for 7 years, I was the White Plains Housing Drug Elimination Officer. I was awarded with the HUD Hero Award from HUD for my work in public housing. After 9 years, I transferred to the Sleepy Hollow Police Department, where I was promoted to detective and then sergeant, then detective sergeant. And I was also a domestic violence instructor where I taught at the police academy for a number of years. I taught domestic violence, role playing, the approaches and the dynamics of domestic violence. And I noticed that during my time there, that most oftentimes I was the only instructor of color. So that's something that I'd like to see improved upon. And also the hiring process. The written test is scored. Every other aspect of the process, the physical, the agility, those are all pass-fail. I was wondering if we can look into the written test being the same, because you have good officers or good potential officers that maybe scored an 80 or 85 but never get looked at because we go from 100 down. So I think that because you have scored the highest makes you better officer material than somebody who doesn't score it. And I think we have a better pool to choose from if we made it just pass-fail. And with that being said, I look forward to working with everybody. And I'd like to also add that I'm the son of a former White Plains police officer, and my grandfather was a minister, and he was also a sheriff with the Westchester County Police Department of Public Safety. And my grandmother used to always tell him, "You don't need a gun going to work, just carry your Bible."
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hood. Next, we're going to hear from Robert Tucker. Just 1 second, and I'll pull him up. All right, Robert, you're up right about now. You should be good to go.
Great, thank you very much, and thank you to the county executive and the deputy county executive for having the confidence in me. It's a pleasure and an honor to serve. I'm Robert Tucker. I live in Scarsdale with my wife and 3 children. I grew up in Manhattan. I went to the Ethical Culture School and GW University, and then I came back to the great county of Westchester and attended Pace University Law School at night while working for the late Queens District Attorney Richard A. Brown as his special assistant. I'm currently the chairman and CEO of a company called T&M Protection Resources. We are a security consulting and investigations business located in Manhattan, but we do a tremendous amount of work all over the country and own the largest security company in Israel. Very active in public safety philanthropy, including with the New York City, I'm a trustee of the New York City Police Foundation, and I'm also, I serve as a police board commissioner in Westchester County. I was appointed in January 2017, and I was reappointed by County Executive Latimer. I believe in police reform. I also believe in the rule of law. I support the men and women of law enforcement, and I admire their hard work and dedication. I reject rogue police officers, and I despise incidents like the death of George Floyd. So an opportunity to work with all of you is not only welcome, but I think extremely important. And again, I'm humbled and honored to serve with all of you, so thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Robert. Next, we're going to hear from Judge Kathy Davidson. Just 1 second while I pull her up. All right, Judge, you should be good to go right about now. Hello?
She's there. I know that she said she had a court hearing.
I see her little.
She's there.
girl
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
there.
She was going to
She's
have
unmuted.
We can come back.
I'll have to come back to her.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to Judge Davidson a little bit later. Instead, we're going to hear from Martin Mcdonald. One moment while I pull you up, sir. Okay, Martin, you should be good to go right about now.
Hello there, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. This is amazing. Really blown away by what I'm experiencing now. Thank you for the opportunity to be a part of this committee, this task force, and what we're attempting to do is critical. My name is Martin Mcdonald. I'm this president, CEO, and founder of a group in Peekskill called the Black Diamonds Academic Success Program. I mentor to help black boys and boys of color complete high school successfully and prepare them for life after high school. I'm also a proud member of the Mount Olivet Baptist Church, Peekskill, New York. I'm the past president of the Peekskill NAACP, helped bring back that organization about 4 years ago now, and we've done some amazing things with that organization. One of the things I'm most proud of is our work to get the law passed for prosecutorial misconduct. We had a chance to do that. We had a couple of events focused around that, and thank co-chair Mayo Bartlett for participating in one of our events we held in Peekskill. We also had the Justice for the Wrongfully Incarcerated come through Peekskill as they were marching from New York City to Albany. Yusef Salam and Salman Salam, Yusef, formerly of the Incarcerated 5 in Central Park. He stopped through, so the work that we've done there has just been monumental. We've tried to do some things. I'm currently the co-chair of the Economic Empowerment Committee in Peekskill, NAACP, and just an honor to be a part of this. So that's my background. I'm married, happily married to a wonderful lady named Tuesday Pace McDonald. A wonderful and I gotta also thank a friend of mine who invited me to be a part of this panel, and said, you know what, you'll be busy for 1 month, 2 months, you'll be done after 2 months, so I'll come a little later. I appreciate that. I'm really glad to be here. I am. I thank you for this opportunity. My concerns as a black man in the 60s and being around for a while, and right now we're in a climate of we couldn't see it coming, but we could almost see it coming. Where we're here now once again, and some things are happening, and I'm alarmed and concerned. I'm pissed. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm mad. It's why are we here? Well, I'm glad we're here, but I think we got some work to do. Some of the things I've witnessed in my life with police, and there are good police and there are bad police, but the bad police have made it hard for me to really give anybody a pass at this point, because we know who the bad police are, and the good police know who the bad police are too. And so it's like, why are we still going through this? Why haven't we figured this out? So hats off and kudos to county exec and the staff for being ahead of the curve and being proactive enough to say that, you know, we can do something about this, and we're going to do it now. It's not going to be easy. I'm blown away by what I'm hearing and all the people that I'm being introduced to. So thank you for the opportunity. The things that I would like to see come out of this task force, if it's at all possible. One was already mentioned, is a civilian complaint review board with subpoena power, maybe even able to bring charges. I think if each community has that, and it's not going to be easy, but we've been asking for that for a long time. This is not anything new. I think one of the other things that we've been looking at least from my perspective, is if there's anything to reinvent the grand jury system. The grand jury system has been a scam. It always has been. If we I don't know if that's outside the realm of what we're doing here. We need to look at that. It's all connected. It's all one is connected to another. It's not independent. It's all connected. And lastly, one of the things that I would think that we could look at, I don't know if we can do anything about it, is past cases where people have been gunned down by police or killed by police and with impunity, and then nothing happened. And yet everybody else in my community, we know what happened. We know the real deal, but yet and still, justice did not prevail. From being in Austin with Chris Malone to seeing what happened to Kenneth Chamberlain to Dan Roy, DJ Henry to Chris Ridley. If we can't talk about that, then I think we're going to miss something. And I'll be a little disappointed, but I still think there's a lot of work to be done. But not just in talking about it, I would like to see if there's a way to go back and retry those cases. Bring them before another jury. And because the grand jury, a lot of times, just said there was nothing there. I don't believe there was nothing there. I think the system, the racist system, the systematic racism wouldn't allow people to move forward. So I would like to see that conversation had. I don't have to be right. I just need to be heard. And I would enjoy having that conversation with these people that I'm being exposed to now. It's just a brilliant, brilliant group of people. So I'm looking forward to working with them. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks very much, Martin. Next, we're going to hear from County Legislator Terry Clemons. Terry, just give me a second here and I'll pull you up. All right, Terry, you should be good to go right about now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank County.
Terry, we can't really hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank
Terry, your microphone seems to be pretty faint. I don't know if you could move closer to your computer or something. It's very, very difficult to hear you.
Sometimes the microphone actually. Can you hear me better now?
It's a little better now, yeah. It's still difficult to hear you, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's something with the microphone because I have a lot of stuff plugged in. Okay, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, this is pretty good. Thank you.
All right. Okay, so anyway, I was born in Philadelphia, raised in Chicago, and went to school in Ohio. And when I was in college, I studied anthropology. From there, I went on to graduate work in Rhode Island, which led me to volunteer at a prison facility in Rhode Island. And I was teaching young men to read. After that, I went and joined a broadcast company out of New York. And when I did my work there in the 70s, I did a documentary about lifers that were adamantly against riot. As a talent manager, I've had young performers that have gotten themselves in trouble. And I've worked along with their parole officers, making sure they get returned to the criminal justice. As an educator, I've mentored and as well as as a legislator. I've mentored teachers in the New York City Fellow Program, teachers that keep elementary and middle school for them to understand the importance of education so that students don't become a part of the justice system. Their lack of academic skills and guidance leads them not having the ability to have a clear goal in life. I'm very interested in this because I'm also chairman of the Black Youth of Westchester, and I understand that there's unfair and unjust treatment of Black and brown people across this country. There are many members of African Americans who play a vital role in the national law enforcement community, protecting and serving all Americans. I have relatives that have been in the Philadelphia Police Department as their ranking members and make decisions. I grew up with an uncle that I saw like on a weekly basis, who was a captain in Chicago Police Force. I am concerned because I think that there's just some individuals that violate the public trust. Those are the individuals that I'm most interested in so that we can change and reform the criminal justice system so that people understand, know how to treat and respect people that are different than themselves. And it's an honor for me to work on this committee to work towards that goal. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much, Terry. It was a little bit difficult to hear you there, still, unfortunately. So will we circulate?
Send her statement.
Okay, we'll circulate your statement just to be certain.
All right.
So next up, we are going to go to Dr. Stephen Pogue. Pogue, my bad. I apologize. I'm really doing these names great today, aren't I?
You're doing a good job, Copper.
All right, Stephen, you should be up just about now.
Thank you so very much to the county exec for allowing me to serve with such a great group of people. for such an important task as police reform. Looking forward to having great conversation with these wonderful minds that have gathered around the table. My name is Stephen Pogue. I pastor the 5,000 plus member Greater Centennial AME Zion Church in Mount Vernon, New York. I serve as the vice chair of the Westchester County Human Rights Commission and also as the police chaplain for the Mount Vernon Police Department. So I'm excited about serving and hopefully doing some historical work on this commission that we might be able to set the parameter and the guideline for other communities to follow, that when we all come together and put all the minds together at the table, we can come up with solutions to problems. And of course, that means we're going to have some difficult and real conversations, but they will lead to lasting and changing solutions that our community needs so desperately. Looking forward to seeing how we can make sure that every community has a CCRB and making sure that they are working properly and that they have given the necessary authority to do what needs to be done. Also would love to have conversations around how do we recruit police officers, or how do we recruit people to be police officers in the community in which they live. So how do we make sure that young men and young women are not afraid to become police officers, and they can see it as a lasting career and something that can be beneficial to them. Also would love to talk about how do we make sure that those who are not doing the right thing, bad police officers, that their records follow them wherever they go. So no municipality in Westchester would hire a bad police officer that came from another municipality, and so they're not just moving from one place to the other, to making sure that their record does follow them wherever they go, and making sure there's proper training in place for our police officers so they would understand the community in which they're policing, and the community would understand them, and that comes with training and community policing and all those other things. So I'm excited about what the real possibility of this commission could do if we do the real work, and so I'm excited about us doing that.
Great. Thank you so much, Dr. Pogue. Next, we're going to go to Dr. Damia Harris-Madden. Just 1 second while I pull her up. All right. Damia, you should be good to go right about now.
Great. Thank you, Copper. I am Dr. Damia Harris-Madden, and I want to thank the county executive for appointing me to this committee. I clearly have an invested interest serving as the Westchester County Youth Bureau Executive Director, but also as a professional of color, a wife and mother of Black children. I think that this is a very opportune time for us to start this work, and it's going to be deep work. So I want to say thank you also to Deputy County Executive and my colleagues. My background is executive leadership, fund development, evaluation, and training. And I deliberately left the private sector because I really did not feel fulfilled. Although my mother screamed and yelled as a clinician, she said, "You don't leave, the private sector to go into nonprofit," but I did. And at that point, I was working with young people within the juvenile justice system through the Urban League. I then spent 16 years within the great city of Mount Vernon, where I've worked alongside Legislator Williams as well as Deputy Commissioner Rayner, local judges, to develop restorative justice practices such as youth police communication training and second chance employment opportunities. And I would also leave my office frustrated after reading crime stats, which, pointed to the arrests and charges of many young people who had, in my view, untapped and unexplored potential. And so as a researcher, it's very clear that there have been significant impediments to establishing trust between law enforcement and people of color. The data is quite compelling regarding the disproportionate outcomes related to the racial profiling, arrest, incarceration, sentencing, and recidivism of Black and brown people in the United States, but also here in Westchester County. And the truth is that there is historical trauma that has adversely impacted the relationships between people of color and people within the police department, including myself. I mean, I have friends who are in law enforcement, colleagues within law enforcement, yet I live with this internalized trepidation at times for law enforcement. And I have to be honest about that. So I see this as an opportunity because there are many diverse voices within this task force, and it really gives me hope that there will be a deep dive into the explicit and implicit bias, as well as the opportunity to begin to address these glaring issues. Like I said, this deep-seated trepidation, fear, and mistrust that has been instilled in people of color. A great example of how the justice system has, really devastated many of our communities have been this pipeline to prison for children and youth of low socioeconomic status. The flawed educational systems play a role in that, but so does racist ideologies and also disproportionate disciplinary measures, which lend to the entry into the juvenile justice system. So it's my firm belief that from a leadership perspective, we should always look at the four frames, and those of you who study business probably have heard of Bowman and Deal's research regarding the structural, political, human resources, and symbolic frames. I offer this team my lived experiences as well as my skill set in research, evaluation, assessment, training, executive leadership, but also, leading from a heart, because as a parent, it's very difficult to dissect the ABCs of racism to a 4-year-old. It's really challenging to express to my 6-year-old why mommy is crying when her daddy goes to work at midnight because he is in the blue-collar workforce and is an essential worker, and I live in, a predominantly white community, yet I fear that he may not return. So I lend my lived experience again, as well as my professional experience, and I look forward to being a part. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Damia. Next, we're going to hear from Dean Horace Anderson. Just one moment here, and I will pull him up. All right, Dean, you should be ready to go right about now.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Horace Anderson. I'm Dean of the Elizabeth Haub School of Law at Pace University, known to many of you as Pace Law School. And I want to say thank you to the county executive for giving me the opportunity to serve. I look forward to building relationships with those of you who I don't already know. I must be candid, however, the relationship is not exclusive. I've actually been asked to serve on a similar committee / task force in Jersey City, New Jersey, where I live. And I embrace the opportunity to work with both bodies on both a professional and a personal level. Professionally, I'm a law teacher and I lead a law school, and the law school that I lead sends a lot of its graduates out to work in some aspect of criminal justice. About 15% of our most recent graduating class are going to be working in prosecutors' offices starting in the fall. Probably at least as many or more will be working on the criminal defense side when they graduate. We have many graduates who are either coming from law enforcement before they get to PACE or continue in law enforcement after they graduate. We have many senior law enforcement officials among our alumni, including several chiefs of police. So the opportunity to influence the environment into which we are graduating our students and where they will be doing their work is really important to me. On a more personal level, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. Those of you who know Brooklyn, I was raised in East New York and Brownsville, two communities that have been simultaneously at times under-policed and over-policed. I have two sons, ages 14 and 12. I worry for them, especially the 14-year-old who moves about on his own a little bit more than the 12-year-old does. He's in high school. At the same time, I have friends in law enforcement, people who I grew up with, people who I went to school with, people who I served in community organizations with. So they have, as far as I can tell, a similar mindset and upbringing to me. And I worry about them as well, because I think that what you want to call them, the bad apples or the rogue police or the bad cops, ultimately make their jobs more difficult and ultimately create more danger for them in what is already a dangerous job. And so I look forward to working to try to resolve something of a disconnect that I have when I think about law enforcement. One is that, so many of my students, who are all great people, go into some aspect of law enforcement. I have friends who are police officers, and there's a big disconnect between what I know of them and what I see in terms of some of the heinous incidents and outcomes that are in the news, unfortunately, too frequently nowadays. And the death of George Floyd was a catalyst for a lot of things, but it is the most recent, or one of the recent, in a long list of similar incidents. So I want to be part of resolving this institution where many good people go into it, and there's something about culture, something about fixed institutional norms that distorts what those people want to do and are able to do in that job. And I want to be a part of removing that distortion and removing that corruption of the ideals. I refuse to believe that we can't have it all as a county, as a state. And by having it all, I mean have safe communities and have individual safety for people when they encounter law enforcement, and have safety for law enforcement, and have space for men and women in law enforcement to live the values that they grew up with, which more likely than not are values that we all share, and not have those distorted, and not have any institutional history or institutional bias distort what they got a job to do. So I think it's a big job. I'm glad to be involved in it with such an esteemed group. I look forward to learning, and I look forward to hopefully making some small contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dean. Next up, we're actually going to go back to Judge Davidson. We've got her on over the phone here, so we're going to have her speak right about now. Judge Davidson, do you want to give us a test real quick?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for giving me this brief moment just to speak. I'll keep my remarks short. Some of you have many great speakers on, and I also want to echo and support all that's said before me. I think it's important, especially with the concept of police reform, that we think about the connection with our youth officers, the lack thereof of our officers. I think often we forget about, when we do want to hold someone accountable, these decisions come before courts. And so many of these cases that are tossed because of a court, the judge decisions. And so I think it's important as we go forward, as we think about what's happening specifically with our youth, because we know that most of the context of the law start with our youth, that we include that in terms of how we address that. We know from a recent study that we did here with the court, and we created a gender responsive initiative partnership, that the increasing number of young girls are who we're seeing in the courts. And when you review and look at the data that we were able to do in collaboration with NYU, you see that the cross section of how it interacts with the world of policing. And so I say this briefly to say, I think when we think about it in globally, but I remind you that when you want to hold someone accountable in all these cases that have been dismissed, some judge had to have an action in that, a part in that. And so I think if you don't include how you perceive judges, the judges that sit in the court, when these cases come into court, if we don't include the voices of the youth as part of this, how they're treated, I think that we'll miss a great opportunity to start reform at a much, much earlier level. On a personal level, I am what they call children of the dream, a direct beneficiary of the Civil Rights Act of 1966. I'm a beneficiary. I've also had the unfortunate being stopped by the police because I was either a light-skinned black or Puerto Rican. I've also had the unfortunate instances when there was picketing, that I happened to be the African-American in school in the 60s, and my brothers and sisters on the street picketing the schools. But it did not go unnoticed to my classmates that, they should use the N-word as they were referring to me. So I say that to say this in a very brief and short way, that I think that we have to look at where we begin this discussion. And I ask you not to forget that the first step, the first beat, as we know, most children get in trouble between the hours of 3 and 6 when leaving school. Who are those police contacting the youth? Who are those police walking them home? As we all go back into our community at a certain time and see kids walking from home. So those are my brief comments, just additional thoughts, and I look forward to working with everyone. And thank you for this opportunity.
Great. Thank you so much, Judge Davidson. So that's actually the end of our speakers here. So I think with that...
Troy DeCon?
No, unfortunately, he's not on yet.
We didn't hear from Karine, right? We didn't hear from him or
That's right.
All right, we have neglected to introduce ourselves, so very briefly, for those of you who don't know me, I am Mayo Bartlett. I'm a former prosecutor for the Westchester County DA's office, and I started here under Carl Gary in 1992. I stayed there for 11 years, served in many capacities in the office, including major case, career criminal, and I ultimately, I was the assistant DA in Mount Vernon and a number of the other communities throughout Westchester, and I ended running the bias crime unit for Westchester County. After that, I became a civil rights and criminal defense attorney, and then I again served the County of Westchester and Human Rights Commission for a number of years, probably over a decade, and I believe I was chair for 2 terms. I've served on the Board of Legal Aid Society, and I also have served as vice president for Westchester County Bar for a number of terms and on the board of the Westchester Black Bar. I'm going to forget a few of the others, so please, I apologize and don't, I guess I have to mention that I was also on the board, I am on the board of the Urban League of Westchester. Thank you.
I got to tell you, just hearing everyone speak, it's great with the attitudes that everyone has, that we're here ready to work and do some great things. My name is Leroy Fraser. I'm originally from Alabama by way of New York. I went to school and grew up in Tuskegee, Alabama, and spent my summers with my mother up in Harlem, New York. I eventually, after going to law school, began working at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, where I worked for approximately 33 years. I pretty much worked in every area of the office I was to work. I headed up a investigations white-collar crime bureau for about 12 years. And I eventually went on the executive staff with the late Honorable Robert Morgenthau and served as his executive assistant for community relations, and also worked in the area of policies and legislation for him as well. I continued for 4 years under District Attorney Cyrus Vance, and then for my last 4.5 years, I served as Chief of Staff in the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office. I went over to work with the late Kenneth P. Thompson, where we did some great things. It was almost like that's what I've been working my career to do. We were able to set some game-changing reforms. We came out with a policy to change the way marijuana, small possessions of marijuana was prosecuted in Brooklyn and then throughout the city. We started a conviction integrity unit, where while we were there, we looked at wrongful convictions of approximately 33 individuals that were changed, and they were given new starts in life, those who were still around. We also started a young court by ages 18 to 24 individuals who could have a holistic approach to how they address their initial involvement with the criminal justice system. I've served on the boards of the Osborne Association, Correctional Association, and presently a board of a young organization called Multi, Music on the Inside, that teaches inmates who are about to be released that have an interest in learning musical instruments, specifically jazz, because we work closely with individuals from Jazz at Lincoln Center. So happy, as we said at the beginning, to be here and looking forward to doing some work. I think now we've talked about what the areas, I've given you the titles of the areas of that we're looking at, and I'll repeat them just so that on the backdrop of hearing everyone talk, you know what working group we'll get back to you on. One is transparency, accountability is the second one, community engagement, training and equipment, qualifications and recruitment, and policies and procedures. Now, probably by the end of the week, we'll get back to you with those assignments. And again, you can feel free to reach back to us if you feel you can give more on one other than you were assigned. But keep in mind that we're going to be discussing everything together as a task force. And if, in fact, you want to submit information to someone else on a different committee that you think would be helpful to them, that you should feel free to do so throughout. The next step will be the public forum. Now, that will take place on July 21st. It also will be set up as a WebEx meeting. And we'll send out to you information about it and exactly how it's going to be run and everything between now and then. Anything else? I think that's does anyone have any questions at this time that they want to bring up or pose? Cop, is there a way that they can get your...
Yeah, so what I can do is I'm going to open the lines generally to all the members of the task force, and we'll see if anybody has anything to say. I'm going to run through that, and if there's any ambient noise, I'll manually mute those people.
I just want to add that I'll be following up with an email.
1 second, please.
Sorry.
All right.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. I just want to add that we will be following up with an email to everyone that will include the dates that were discussed, the contact information of each task force member, and a copy of the personal statements as well.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay, so now I'm going to unmute everybody again, and we'll see how we do.
Just a quick comment.
You just got it like a month ago.
The social distancing, that's what.
Okay, so or may not be available on the 21st as I will be traveling. So it's going to depend on my internet connection, but I will try my best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's understandable. But we'll keep you informed.
Thank you.
Is anyone in here?
Yep, everyone's good to go now.
Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Yes, we want to thank everyone. Do you want to say something at the end?
May I ask, is there any existing study of community policing or any existing report on community policing in Westchester that could be disseminated, something that's already studied the issue that could, create some kind of data, or is there data or anything that exists that is available?
There was a very interesting May 9th, 2008 report on the force training Police Academy, which I think was interesting for me to read it.
Yes, send that out.
Yes, I can,
We'll send that out to everyone. We have it here, and we will get that distributed to everyone. And as time goes along, you will probably get information sent out to you as we get things in that we think you'll be interested in and that we think will help you in carrying out your duties.
Yeah, I was going to make the point that we have that report, which was the report that was conducted by on a committee after the death of the Detective Christopher Ridley, as well as we also have part of the Board of Legislators. We also have reports that are that are for racial profiling reports are required by law that the county police file with us. But it's important to get not only reports from the county, but there are reports that in other communities that could be helpful in getting the kind of data that probably would be needed in this particular task force process.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Lyndon. We will, as I said, that other data and any information that we get in that we believe will be helpful to you, we will disseminate it to you as time proceeds.
May I also ask, is the charter really going to focus on Westchester County policing, or are we allowed to think about the town and municipal policing, in the cities and towns? I mean, what's the scope and charter, if I may?
Well, Barbara, from my standpoint, since we impaneled it, the narrow responsibility is to prepare a report that deals with the county police. The county police obviously has an IMA with Mount Kisco, and we provide local policing there. So the concept of local policing goes into what we're doing, and we may in the future have other IMAs with other communities. So there's the potential that the county police, which we're trying to analyze now, could be involved in municipal policing in other places outside of Mount Kisco. Whatever the task force does, either interim or permanent basis, is going to be shared with the other municipalities in Westchester. We have a weekly municipal call, and a number of communities are interested in how we're progressing on this task, and they want to look at it because they too have to put together a report. It needs to be a separate report. The governor has not given any indication that we could, apply on a multiple level. But I think what we do is going to have an influence in many of those other communities. I think probably where the most interaction will happen that will be interesting is watching what the other major communities in Westchester do. The Yonkers, Mount Vernon, New Rochelle, White Plains, and Greenburgh departments, they're the 5 largest communities. They have the most interaction with police, with the largest African-American communities in terms of absolute number of people. And that interaction, as we do our work, will probably be interesting. But our responsibility in the report is to deal with that which the Westchester County Police governs, which would be parkway policing, the parks policing action, where we have municipal police responsibilities, primary in Mount Kisco. We have some overlay responsibilities in Cortland and Tuckahoe, and most importantly, our work at the Academy for Education. That also falls under the county police scope.
Thank you.
Okay, we want to thank everyone who participated. And we again want to not leave without thanking the county executive, deputy county executive, and the staff for their continued support. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.